Welcome to another episode of the Lady Trucking CEO podcast. Once again, I have another amazing guest here with us, Miss Shay Lynn Dixon. Go ahead and
Hey
introduce yourself
everyone.
to everyone.
So thank you so much for having me. My name is Shay Lynn Dixon. I am the CEO and co-founder of S.C.A.L.E Logistics. This is my second time with building a freight brokerage. I specialize in high value cargo serving the aerospace industries. I am all about the riches are definitely in the niches, and I service the Southeast. So if you have a flatbed, hot shot, I want to connect with you for sure. So thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. It's really a pleasure. Um, so you're into brokering. Get into a little bit about what does that actually entail? Because I think that we have one idea of what that means, and then it might be something, that we might not actually know what it entails.
So, right now I feel like in the industry, brokers have a really bad name.
And you
They're just
do,
like
they
they
do,
do.
they
And
do.
so I consider myself like a lawyer or
Mm,
like a real estate broker or an insurance broker. I'm just the middleman, right? And if I've had my real estate license, so I know in real estate, when you are the middleman between a buyer and a seller, they both have to be aware that you're the middleman, right?
mm.
So essentially, all I'm doing is representing the shipper, and I'm just trying to find the most qualified carrier and, get them to transport product from A to point Z for me, right? But where a lot of brokers fail and where a lot of the contention comes from is that
Hmm.
most brokers don't actually handle the other side, which is also advocate for the carrier.
Mm.
So most modern brokers or smart brokers, as my factoring company says, we are advocating for both. So I am neutral, right? I want my customers to have fair rates and to make sure that, they're able to get their product moved.
Hmm.
And, I'm doing my due diligence with the carriers, but also on the other side, I want to make sure that my carriers, who most of my carriers are small fleets under 7 trucks. I don't work with a lot of the bigger trucking companies because
Hmm.
they back solicit just like other carriers.
Mm.
So I work with the small and mom and pop hotshot flatbed companies, and even dispatchers who are dispatching maybe under 5 trucks.
Hmm.
And I am able to really leverage those personal relationships. So most of my carriers now, they come from other guys who I've hauled with. Like I know their kids' names, I talk to their
That's so cool.
wives, these are family businesses as well. So I care about these businesses and I'm making sure that they're going to eat because I need them to stay in business so that we can continue to this partnership, right? And that's what it
Yes.
is. So I am really just a logistics partner representing shippers, manufacturers, distributors, and also carriers.
I
And
love that. We need more of that in the industry. That is
we
so,
do.
um, it's so cool because describing yourself as a logistics partnership is such a vital thing in this industry. Like it is necessary. What do you do to like cultivate some of those relationships, like with
Yeah.
all of
So
the different stakeholders that you deal with?
and it's a lot of them. Literally everything in my business is a partnership.
Mm.
So one thing that's like you know, this like not talked about thing is that people don't like to partner,
Mm.
especially people in our community. There's always this underlying sense of fear that someone is going to take from them, fear that maybe you are going to bring more to the partnership than
Mm.
them, fear that someone is going to be disloyal or be distrustful. And most of that comes from many of us having those experiences. I
Yeah.
know that I have had plenty of those experiences, and I know other people have had
Mhm.
those experiences where you just partner with someone and you think that it's going to turn into something, meaningful and lucrative, and it winds up taking you steps and strides back, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now when I'm looking for partnerships, I am only making partnerships that are mutually beneficial, where I benefit them and they benefit me. And we're very clear about that up front.
Mm.
Um, So leading with the idea of partnership. So my customers, I'm an extension of their team. My
Mhm.
team, when I'm onboarding them, I let them know you're outsourcing a portion of your logistics and transportation operations to my team. This is partnership, right? So they don't look at me as
Yes.
like I'm a broker that's
Right.
I'm their logistics partner. And
Mm.
I'm giving them, so I already start off the relationship where it's like, hey, I just want to help you out. Here's some things that you're not thinking. Because a lot of times, the people who are in the procurement, sales, warehouse management role, they are not always abreast to industry trends. So they really
Mm.
don't know what the rate per mile is. They just know that they're paying a lot for shipping and they feel that it's unfair. So
Okay.
my job as a broker, as it pertains to my partnership with a distributor, a manufacturer, a repair facility, I
Hmm.
am like a consultant to them. I'm educating them. I'm telling them, look, there's multiple modes that we can transport this freight on. If you do it this way, you're going to, pay about this amount. You'll
Hmm.
save 10% if you do it this way. And you can help small businesses by, allowing these resources to go to them. That's one.
Mm.
On the carrier side, that partnership very much looks like understanding what my carriers need, understanding where they like to run, understanding people's personal situation. Like I have a guy that he needs to be home every weekend. He takes care of people, elderly people in his family. So if
Hmm.
I know I'm sending him out to Arizona, then I need to make sure that, it's earlier in the week so that he can get something back.
Right.
Simple things like that, instead of just throwing everyone into a database and sending a blank email like, hey, can you guys? It's like, hey, no, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is your family okay? Did you
Right.
survive COVID? What are you
Hmm.
struggling with in your trucking company? I don't do compliance. I don't do anything with fuel. When I tell you I've had trucks and I don't ever want to have trucks again, my husband drove box
Yeah.
trucks for almost 16
Wow.
years. I'm good off the trucks. But if
Wow.
you need help, I have people in my network that can help you because I want you to
Mm.
win as a carrier. So I go into every relationship, whether it's the customer or the carrier, looking as we are in partnership with you.
Mm.
That's it.
How did you even come to have this mindset around your partnerships? Because that is something that we need more of.
It is. So I worked for a lot of different, I started off in the industry right out of high school. I worked for a polyethylene manufacturing company through a temp agency, and it was a small business, a small Italian company. I was the only Black girl in the office. It was mostly their family that ran the
Hmm.
business. And if anybody knows people, I grew up in Jersey, Philly area. So, um, I love Italian people because they're very blunt, they're very straightforward, and they do good business. So
Mm.
a lot of them, their word is their bond, right? That's how they do business. So I
Hmm.
learned very early on by watching. His name is Alan. They no longer have the company; they sold to GTI. But
Okay.
anyways,
Hey, I know you guys are enjoying the episode, but if you haven't liked this video, please take a moment to stop, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you can get more gems dropped on your timeline. Let's get back to the show.
Alan, he always said what he meant and meant what he said, whether
Mm.
it's to customers or to just anyone he did business with. And he always handled them. And I saw him handle everyone kind of like, hey, buddy, like, those old Godfather movies and everybody's sitting down and they're like, we're agreeing to this,
Hmm.
over a drink. That's how
Hmm.
he handled business. So I really tried to take that with me when I started my business because when I worked in logistics, I've done everything from LTL for UNFI, working for a large cold chain. And I didn't like how they did business. A
Hmm.
lot of companies are all about the dollar, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't want my company to be like that. So that's what made me come from a partnership standpoint. When my husband and I started our entrepreneurship journey, he was still in the box truck and
Hmm.
he was still, doing things from a carrier side. So now in our business, I handle the customer side a lot more and he handles the carriers. All the guys
Mm.
know him. They're like, oh, that's Dee's wife. I help with admin things if people need or like people on our team will, but
Hmm.
he talks to the guys because he was a carrier. So he
Right.
knows what it's like to have people blowing you up. Like, no, look, you don't trust me. That's cool, but this isn't going to work. That's not
Right.
partnership.
Right.
So, um, from the very beginning, we knew what we didn't want our business to be like. We knew how I was treated as an agent, how he was treated as a carrier. We knew that we just wanted to make sure, like, SCALE stands for Supply Chain and Logistics Excellence.
Mm,
And that was always my goal, like to strive. One of my female role models, she was like a mother figure to me. We used
hmm.
to run Vacation Bible School, and she would tell me, we have to operate in excellence, even with the little things, because then with the
Yes.
big things, you will operate in excellence as well. So my
Mm,
husband and I just took that every single load, every carrier interaction. So my carriers, they already know, like some of them will be like, oh, it's okay, I don't have to run a load for you, because they already know what I expect,
right.
right? And we set the standard, but I'm going to give you the same in return, right? I'm going to make sure you get
Yes.
paid. I'm gonna go to
Yes.
bat for you. All of that.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. So with you mentioned, so you do business together with your husband.
Yeah.
What is the dynamic? So it's kind of similar with me, but he does the carrier, I do the back office work. Um, how did you guys come to agree that, and or how do you even manage that part of the business relationship? Because that's a business relationship, and then that's a not business relationship. So how do you manage some of the things that goes on there?
Let me tell you
Let
something.
me get my notepad out. Let me take some notes, because baby.
Nothing but God. When I tell you, we pray a lot.
Okay.
And I know people are like, oh, prayer changes things.
Yes.
And I am an extremely strong-willed and passionate woman. So
Hmm.
that means that, my husband has to communicate with me in a way that I receive it and can
Hmm.
respect his authority, right, as the
Okay.
head of our household,
Hmm.
even when we disagree. So I share content about this occasionally, but I tell people we got really specific. So how we got here, owning S.C.A.L.E and operating S.C.A.L.E, which, mind you, our authority went active about a year ago.
Okay.
Like on the 11th of this month, it's been a year since our brokerage was active. And I tell him, I'm like, in that year, we've done more volume than we did the first 2 years in our other brokerage. And he
Hmm.
was able to come off his truck. So now we both are entrepreneurs full time while having a
Wow.
team to support us,
Hmm.
right? So I'll tell you what helped us first. He kept driving and keeping his contract box truck um, route when we first started. And that really helped because I tell everyone your income from a freight brokerage is not consistent until you build up that revenue, you build up those relationships, you build up those lanes, you build up
Hmm.
that book of business.
Hmm.
While you're waiting for that, you really have to have some other source of income. So when
Hmm.
there's two people in the household working the same business, someone else has to have something else consistently flowing.
Right.
So that was my husband. He did that. And then when we got that consistency, he came off the truck, which was
Mm.
awesome. However, when he came off the truck, we realized like, wow, okay, he's transitioning from being in a truck, being all over Georgia, to
Hmm.
now he's just in an office at a computer. And this was not his like so much skill set. So what we had to do is identify what things he was good at and he could do without any of my assistance. And then I spent about 6 months training him on the day to day of the business. And each week really for each month we would say, hey, we want to tackle, just carriers, everything to do with carriers. So every week I'd be like, okay, this week this is how you onboard carriers. This
Hmm.
week this is how you, put them into the factoring company. This is how you handle these type of situations. Okay, now you're going to handle all the carrier onboarding. I'm going to handle
Mm.
putting in the loads. So we really worked it out, and it's been great because now we started off doing the day-to-day job. So when we brought on VAs or when we brought on, our daughter or other people to work in the business,
Hmm.
we had those steps mapped out. We knew what was the most efficient way because we were the ones doing it
Wow.
first.
Yes.
And so giving each other job roles on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis.
Hmm.
Even we started having to do quarterly too, just with tax stuff and all of that.
Hmm.
Like literally put in a spreadsheet, everything. And this is going to be something that as the woman or the administrative role in the household,
Hmm.
that the woman's going to have to do. Don't expect your husband to be like, hey, I mapped out everything that needs to be done. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Your husband's not going to do that. Give him what he needs to be successful, even if it
Mm.
takes a little bit of time. I used to be frustrated. I didn't want to, I was like, I could just do this myself. But guess
Right.
what? I couldn't just do it myself long term. It wasn't sustainable.
Mm, mm,
So we got really clear on what our each other's roles were and made sure we were trained, and then made
mhm.
sure that we brought on people to support us. So we are
Got
the
it.
foundation, and everyone else that we bring on is around to support us. That way
Mm,
we keep the foundation and core and the culture of our business and that excellence to the standard that we expect.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. So let's go back a little bit to
Yeah, sure.
when you were growing up. What was growing up like for you?
Ooh, honestly, people always assume that I had like the perfect childhood because I present myself very well.
Hmm.
But this is a lot of coaching. The woman you see today is a lot of refinement. It's a lot of tragedies and trauma. It's a lot of healing. It's a lot of coaching and mentorship.
Hmm.
Um, and so starting off very young, I grew up in the foster care system. I grew up in the projects outside of Pittsburgh. I saw everyone around me use drugs or go to jail.
Hmm.
That was just, even now, 25 years later, most of the people that I grew up with, or like aunts, uncles, people in my family, they passed away, or they went to jail, or they just had a challenging life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's what I grew up into. That's the environment. We were taken away and went into the foster care system. And honestly, I was adopted when I was 9.
Hmm.
So I was old enough, and it's so crazy because my daughter just turned 10. And I always think like, I
Wow.
can't believe me being as mature as I was at 9 compared to where my daughter's at, because she's so sheltered
Hmm.
but it was traumatic. I experienced child abuse, just everything you could really think of that would create fear, doubt, just trauma within a person. And
Mm.
I was adopted at 9, and I was adopted by two white people. And I grew up in like the suburbs. I grew up my parents were very affluent. They were both teachers in really good school districts. You
Hmm.
know, I would have what people consider a good upper middle class family upbringing. The problem is with that is that you still have the trauma that was originally there. You just
Right.
learn to push it to the side and show up as what everyone wants you to be.
Wow.
So going through like my early years, I was out of control. I was wild. No one could tell me anything. I was just No one could stop me. I was living my best life. I was never afraid of authority,
Mm.
just none of it. I honestly, I just always knew that I was going to um get money and live well. I just didn't know
Right.
how, right?
Yeah.
So like I tell people all the time, it is my testimony. Like God has delivered me from so many. I've sold drugs. I've been in jail, and I'm not afraid to tell people that because
Mhm.
that's who I used to be. And
Right.
honestly, when you're made new and
Mhm.
you take up a different journey, then you no longer care about those things.
Right.
But all of that, being in foster care, being adopted, going through my healing journey, going to jail, just recreating my life and who I am as a woman, it really gave me a resilience that when things happen, I don't respond the same way as other people because I've been
Mhm.
through worse. I've
Right.
bounced back from harder. Like I've started over in life so many times that I don't even remember all of them. People will be like, "Do you remember where?" No, I don't. I just did what I had to do.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. So when people always say they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so well spoken," I'm like, "Look, it took me a long time to be confident in who I am, know whose I am, right?
Yes.
Meditate and stand on that so that when people try to tell me otherwise, they can't.
Mm.
Since I was a little girl, I always felt like people tried to break me. They tried to break my
Mhm.
spirit. They tried to break who I am. Even as an entrepreneur, I've had people do it. And I still remain firm and stand on what God has for me and the promises
Yes.
for my life. And I tell
Hmm.
people that all the time. When you're in this space, even when you have mentorship, right? Sometimes the people who are supposed to encourage you will sometimes sow seeds of doubt. So you
Right.
have to have a structure or place where you find your identity outside of, logistics, outside
Yeah,
of the business, outside of what you accomplish, so that you can stay rooted in that. Because sometimes
exactly.
these things don't last, right?
It's so true. So true. Wow, that's quite a story. I mean, was there at was there like a given point or a given moment where you're just like, you know what, I can't, I got to do something different, or I can't. Was there like that come to Jesus moment, as they say, or like that moment where you just like, I have to pivot or I have to do something different?
Yes. So it's crazy. I got arrested and we had drugs in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to the jail, I that was like my, I had been arrested for other things, but they were like misdemeanors. That was my
Mm-hmm.
first like big felony of, and I got
Mm-hmm.
multiple charges. And I grew up in the suburbs, so I really didn't even know what I was doing. I thought I was hard. Being
Right.
around other people, I always had like a hustler's mindset. So I'm like, look, this is what we can do, y'all. I had a good plan. I'm the strategist. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, look, you could make this better by doing this. And we're
Right.
gonna move. And when I went in, when they took me out of the holding cell, they do like the nurse like does like a physical with you, they get all
Mm-hmm.
your information and they make you take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, I'm not pregnant. I don't need to do this. I was pregnant. And I found out that I was pregnant when I was locked up.
Okay.
And I ended up getting bonded out and, going on work release and doing all of that. But the experience of knowing that this is where I'm at and I'm
Mhm.
pregnant and this is not how I want my child. I don't want my child to live the lifestyle that I lived. And
Right.
that was like the moment where I was like, got it. I need to get it together.
Mhm.
And that was like 14, 15 years ago. And that moment shifted life for me.
Mm.
It really did. Honestly, my son just turned 13 and I look back all the time and I'm like, oh, you saved my life. And he doesn't even know. You hear me?
Yes, God is so good like that. Oh my goodness. Wow. So if you could go back to at any given point, like your future self, like how you are now, at what point would you go back and talk to yourself and what would you say to her?
So I would go back around like 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in high school, I had so many opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that I would have taken advantage of those opportunities instead of getting in trouble all the time,
Mm-hmm.
because it would have set me up for a different path, right? I got scholarship opportunities. Like, I was going to go to school for pre-law. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be an attorney because maybe I can argue with the best of them. Now I just negotiate, which is very similar, but I would have um, told myself I needed more role models in my life that were
Mm-hmm.
down to earth, that were my age, or not even my age, but just closer to my age. So I would have clung to those relationships a little bit more. And I would have just told myself, like, look, there's a better way. You don't have to do the hard things, right? You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to. You're not in that place of survival, right? So for me, it actually came up a few years ago. I connected with my birth family. I found my family on Facebook. And this was
Wow.
at the beginning of before I started entrepreneurship. So it
Mm-hmm.
just brought up so many feelings. But I'm really happy that it happened because I navigate business a whole lot different than I would with those same traumas, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to handle people differently. I'm able to give people a little bit more grace, just where I'm further along with in my age and wisdom and discernment.
Mm-hmm.
um I really, I'm thankful for that now, but I wish that I had that more when I was younger. I wish that someone took an interest in getting with me, right?
Right.
So like I had my friends, their moms and stuff would be like, Shay, you don't need to do that, or you're making it hard
Mm-hmm.
for your parents. But I try to be to the younger people that I talk to, like, listen, that will not matter 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares that you're popular? You're failing, right?
Right.
You don't need a boyfriend. Worry about that later. Go get your bag. just different things that I was so focused on because of my trauma.
Mm.
I would go back and tell myself, like, look, let me tell you how this is going to be played out. And I also would be like, look, you need to invest in stocks now instead of waiting.
Yes.
Honestly, those are the two things.
Yeah. How has forgiveness figured into your story? Because I know
Oh,
sometimes
so much.
in life it's hard to go forward without that.
Yeah, it is. So last year, my birth mother passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that did something to me that really helped me with the forgiveness process. So I
Mm-hmm.
was able to talk to her on the phone. And um, when I went to her funeral, I flew to Erie and I hadn't, ever, like, I haven't been around like, I'm talking about my blood family. Like, my
Mm-hmm.
granddaddy, I look like I'm his twin, right? Like, he looks
Wow.
just like the same color eyes. He, just, I'm talking about, he's so fly too. And so I understand where I get a lot of my, like, ways from, because the
Mm-hmm.
way that he moves, he's real, laid back and chill. And so going to see all of my family and everybody, I got to hear so much more about my mom, my
Mm-hmm.
biological mother, and the challenges that our family. And, I was born into chaos. Like, when I was born, my grandmother passed away. She was in a drunk driving accident.
Oh
And,
goodness.
like, just the whole surroundings of my birth and being born, I was able to learn so much more. Like, my biological father, he was in the military. He came back from the military and he had PTSD really bad, and they
Mm-hmm.
had domestic violence going on, and my mom had Crohn's disease. So, like, learning about my family history and different things, even though I didn't grow up with these people, I had some of the same struggles, right? Like, I always wanted
Mm-hmm.
fast money. I always was, drawn to the lifestyle. I grew up in the suburbs, but I was still, I wanted something deep in desire, like, inside of me was just like, quick money. How can I,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's where the generational curses and all of
Yeah.
those things come into play.
Mm-hmm.
So it allowed me to see things from a different perspective. So it allowed me to forgive her.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed me to forgive my family, because I was like, why didn't any of y'all try to get us? You knew.
Right.
And to hear their stories about how they were on probation or they were in jail, the system in Erie was broken. So you couldn't go with
Mm-hmm.
family if anybody had a record or was on probation living in the house. That's my whole family. There was no one else that could,
Wow. Mm.
and or that had firearms or that were convicted felons, So I have forgiven so many people, and I also forgave myself, right, for feeling like it was my fault, for holding all of these, different resentments towards myself, like, you did something wrong, right? You
Right.
believing that. So I forgave myself. Like, I was a child. I really didn't know. I didn't
Right.
understand. Now that
Mm-hmm.
I'm 35, I'm like, okay, so I understand where she was coming from. I understand the
Right.
challenges. So it's been like such a healing experience, and it really sets a different pace for how you move with other people and how you can
Yeah.
forgive other people. Now, I can forgive you and keep my distance, but I
Exactly.
will forgive you.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not about the close proximity, but that the release
Okay,
for forgiveness is for yourself.
that's
Like,
right.
being able to let things go and just allowing the situation to you know, getting to the place where you're like, okay, well, this happened
Yep.
and or that person did that and that's just what it is, and I can release that and not feel some type of way about it or hold it against them or myself, or it's
Yeah,
really a powerful thing. It really
it
is.
really is. And you move differently after you do it. So,
Yeah, yeah, because you're free. It's like a sense of freedom. Like, every time you think of that person, you don't get tight or you don't get,
not wrong.
like upset or angry about anything.
No, I now am in a space. It's literally, it just passed her 1 year anniversary of her passing away, and her birthday's in a couple weeks. And I'm in a place where I'm like celebrating her. She
Yeah.
had a tough life, and I always tell people, like, I still am seeing the good. There's so many stories that I hear about her tenacity,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that I get honest,
Mm-hmm.
hearing them talk about it, I'm like, okay, I understand where it comes from now, but that
Yeah.
shows up. That's what makes me unique. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, that's what makes people want to do business with me. A lot of us try to hide behind those, stories, but those are the things that make you unique. And those are the things
Yes.
that make people want to do business with you or
Mm-hmm.
want to get to know you more because they're like, I've had a customer connect with me and he was like, I grew up in the foster care system too. Like randomly, we just
Mm-hmm.
talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was able to share his experience and like he never got adopted, and
Wow.
he grew up all the way through the foster care system and the challenges that brought, but that also changes how he does business now and
Mm.
how relationships are so important to him instead of it being more of a transactional. And a lot of brokers are transactional.
Yes, that's so true. And also with getting into the workforce and or getting transitioning, I guess, from the workforce into entrepreneurship, how did that, how did your past carry over or like affect like being able to get a job or because I know some of these things, people that's a big deterrent for a lot of people. And I feel like the trucking and logistics industry is one of those industries where you can thrive as an entrepreneur, regardless of what happened in the past.
Regardless. Let me tell you, so for me, it didn't. I went a different route when
Mm-hmm.
my charges got brought down. I wrote a letter to the judge, and if anybody lives in Florida, you know that your sentence can either be you can be adjudicated guilty or you're considered like guilty but not adjudicated, which means that the judge is saying that you entered a plea. However, they're not putting it in as you are a felon, right? So you can
Mm.
still have felonies and plead guilty without it being adjudicated, right? So it's considered adjudication withheld. So
Okay.
I wrote to the judge and I read the laws and I, made sure that I had adjudication withheld. So when I went to
Mm.
get jobs, that wasn't an issue for me. I'm actually going through the
Okay.
process because it's been so long of getting it. I want to rush and be a part of a sorority eventually. So I need to get it taken off my record. And it was so long ago that I'm like, look, I've been a model citizen. So,
Right.
um, so it didn't affect me. However,
Mhm.
my brother, my only brother, my only biological brother, and we actually are biological, same mom, same dad, and
Mhm.
we grew up in the foster care system together. He's in prison and he has 2 years left of a 16-year sentence. So
Mhm.
he's been in prison since he was a teenager,
Mhm.
right? And it's actually, I think they say like 61% of foster kids wind up either dying or going into sex trafficking or going to prison.
Oh my
That's like,
God.
yes,
That's
that's
grim.
how real it is. But he did a lot of
Oh,
time in
Jesus.
prison, and now that he's getting ready to get released, I'm looking forward to it. I have a business model set up that he can jump right in, record or not,
Mm. Mhm.
right? So I'm looking forward to that. And I see a lot of other people who get into it. I have a mentee, her whole trucking company is all of their employees. I think they have 7 drivers. Every driver comes through a reoffenders program. They go
Mm.
through CDL school that is paid for by a grant by Chicago, like the
Mhm.
state of Chicago or the state of Illinois, and they put their drivers in the seats.
That's
So
amazing.
logistics is definitely the place for people who they want a second shot or the best people I find are people that used to hustle, honestly, because
Yes.
that's what logistics is. It's a hustle. It's a hustle. And if you don't work, you don't eat.
Right. Right. It definitely
you know,
takes a different mindset.
for sure.
Yeah. Wow. So where do you see scale growing to like in the next 5 years or so? Like what's your dream?
Yeah, so my vision is that over the next 5 years, we will be the number one global supply chain choice for aerospace, MRO, and OEM facilities in the US. That's my
Okay.
goal. So we'll want to expand like our warehousing division. I don't advertise it a lot because we
Mm-hmm.
really are just still building it out, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
getting warehousing space, offering freight forwarding to our customers we have now, and then growing that and growing our team of agents. I really want to add more agents on the team, but I am looking for a specific type of person, and I'm being a lot more selective with who we allow to come onto the team because everything that we do is mutually beneficial, including the people that work for us.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to be a blessing to you, I expect you to be a blessing to the business. So
Right, right, right.
I see that global expansion. And I do consulting a lot. So I'm trying to focus on providing resources for people who have taken courses in freight brokering or they've learned how to do it and then they don't have support after that. I feel like
Mm,
a lot of the messages that I receive are people just asking me like, what do you do day to day? What do I need to do day to day? How do I
right,
build this out? What I know people say I need to get customers, but how do I do that?
right.
And how do I consistently do that? Because it's not something you just do for like 3 weeks and you're like, oh, I didn't get a customer. I am forever putting leads into my sales funnel. I'm
Mm,
forever retweaking that pipeline. I'm forever, following up and nurturing and building relationships. And so some people think that it's, transactional, and that's not, it just doesn't work for a small brokerage.
yeah,
When you're competing with larger companies, you have to have some other value besides just capacity.
yeah, yeah. Wow. So what does a day in the life of Shay Lynn Dixon look like at scale logistics? What does that look like?
So, first of all, I normally do not look like this. I'm in my sweatpants and my t-shirt unless I have client meetings. Honestly, I get up early. I'm
Mhm.
still mom, and so I'm making sure, kids are on the bus, everybody has what they need. Drivers are good for the day. My husband's good, make sure everybody needs. For me, I'm looking at my calendar, seeing what I have ahead of me for the day. I've already mapped out my to-do list. So
Mhm.
I am the type of person that I'm like 3 things for myself, 3 things for my home, 3 things for my business. And I
Mm.
prioritize
Write that
those
down. Three, three, three. Three things for what?
three things for yourself that you need to
Okay,
do for
that's perfect.
yourself, right? So that could be
Mhm.
anything like I need to wash my clothes, I need
Mm.
to make me a hair appointment, and I need to make an eyelash appointment for the end of the month before my photo shoot,
Got
right?
it.
That's literally my list right here. 3 things for home could be like I need to follow up with the kids' physicals before sports start. I need to, go grocery shopping or do an Instacart order, and I need to make a doctor's appointment for my vision.
Mm.
And then for the business, it can be, check make sure my bookkeeper has everything for month end, follow up with check the bank account, make sure
Mm.
everything came out, there's no, because when you get to a certain point, you're going to be so busy about the money and you're looking at what's coming in, but you have to look at what's going out too. And
Mm.
so we were paying for subscriptions for stuff. I'm like, I haven't used this in 9 months, didn't notice, right? But $50 here, $99 there,
Adds
it
up.
adds
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It really
That's a
adds
fact.
up. So we try to keep things lean, our operations lean. Um, and then, following up. So 3 things for home, 3 things for myself, 3 things for the business.
I love
And then if
that.
I finish those 3 things, then I can either chill and spend time with the family, or I can go into another project or work on something that is meaningful to me outside of my responsibilities. And that really has helped me. I also keep binders. So
Mhm.
I separate projects into separate binders so that when I close the binder, I close that project, and then my brain is physically saying, on
It's
to the
done.
next. Yeah, because
Wow.
I'll be in it and it'll be like 8 hours later. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't do anything else because I've been working on this one project. So, or like a quote or a bid, I can get lost in a bid, especially if there's
Mm.
multiple lanes.
Mhm.
I'm running numbers, calling carriers, and next thing I know, I spent a whole day on this when I had other things that I needed to do
Mm.
for the progression of the business.
Got it.
Yep.
So it's three things every day. Three things in those three categories every day.
3 things in those categories every day. And most of the time, I finish them early enough that I can do those things that you don't always do, like make a media kit, schedule a
Mm.
photo shoot, plan for the future. It keeps me from working in the business instead of focusing on the trajectory of where the business is going in the future. And I
Mm.
found that really hard in the beginning. I would just be all into content, all into prospecting, and I'm just not doing the things that set us up for the future. So now this gives me the ability to do both.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what are three tips that you would give a brand new entrepreneur, a woman that's just now getting started in her business? It could be a trucking company or a brokerage. Like, what are three tips that you would give her to say, look, sis, let me tell you,
Yeah.
A, B, and C.
So A is that If you don't believe in yourself, no one will.
Mm,
So whatever is going to take to get you from where you're at to where you believe in yourself, you need to do it and do it immediately. Get a mentor, read. If you can afford a mentor, go on Udemy. There's classes under $20. Go on YouTube. I know everyone's like, you can't learn everything from YouTube. You can't, but you can get the basic knowledge, basic
mhm,
terminology. Listen, sign up for industry publications. There's magazines. They literally will
mhm,
mail you these magazines. Find industry publications that you can utilize. The smarter you are and the more confident you feel about doing the role will show up when you're prospecting.
mhm,
It'll show up how you communicate your value to people. So A is definitely feel confident in yourself so that you can show up in a way that makes people want to do business with you.
mhm,
Two, don't be afraid to market your business. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to, who cares? Those people are not going to pay your bills. If you don't have a LinkedIn, you need to get on LinkedIn.
you ain't
If you
lie.
don't have a Google My Business, an Instagram, a Facebook, even if you post once a week, you have to show up for your business and so that other people can find you. It's this
Mm,
weird thing where people are like, I can't get customers, I can't get shippers. Okay, well, shippers and customers can't find you. So if they can't find you, they can't use you.
right.
That should be more of your focus than what, is not happening and what's doing. Can I find you? If I search on Google, am I going to even find you?
Mm,
Right?
mhm,
So focus on marketing your business. Don't be afraid what anyone else has to say about it. If you follow me on Instagram at Shay Lynn Dixon, I share so many marketing tips and I'm being
mhm.
serious about my content in this season. So I'm going to make sure I give you guys as much value as possible. And if you have questions, inbox me. And the last thing I would say is um, do everything with a purpose, right? So a lot of times we go to trade shows or we join groups or we partner with people and the things that we're doing have no purpose. They don't actually generate any revenue for us. It's busy work. So, do things with the purpose of generating revenue. So
Mm,
those revenue generating tasks should be more, right? Like everyone's going to Mats this weekend, right?
mhm, mhm,
It's an awesome opportunity if you guys aren't there. I know Truck and Hustle has a lot of different things that they're putting out. It's a wonderful opportunity for carriers.
mhm,
If you're a freight broker, right, it may not be the right opportunity. If you don't have any freight and you're not in a place where you can meet carriers or your business is not established enough to where you can offer a carrier anything or where a carrier can onboard immediately,
mhm.
then investing and traveling and going to those type of trade shows is not valuable. So make sure that you're putting your time and energy into things that are going to generate revenue, not just make you look good or feel good about the business, right? If you
Yes.
don't have customers, if you don't have freight, if you're not making money, you don't have a business.
Mm. You better say it again. Yes.
Got
It's
to make money
true.
to have a business. You have to
Yes.
have. So I get a lot of people, they're like, I've had my brokerage for 6 months. I haven't moved a load. And I'm like, well, why is that?
Mhm.
Why? Because technically, until you start moving that freight, you don't have a viable business. And that should be your only focus.
Mm.
That
Girl, you done dropped
was
some
my 3 things.
fire on this podcast today. Oh my goodness. Um, wow. So we're about to wrap up, but
Okay.
before we go, leave something with the people. What is a word like that you want to just leave to a woman that just might be, or a young girl or a young person that might be, you know, struggling or might be thinking, just, what kind of word of encouragement you want to leave with us today?
There's so much opportunity
Amazing.
out there. I want to tell everyone there's so much opportunity out here in the logistics space. Be unique to who you are. Focus on the skills and talents that God gave you because that's your value add. That's what
Mhm.
makes you unique. Lean into those things. Most of what you see on social media and behind the scenes is not people's actual life.
Mm.
They're not making 7 figures, or if they did make seven figures, they may not do that consistently. And don't compare yourself to other people because your journey is uniquely yours.
Yes.
Um, Also, there's people out here that really care about other people and want to see other people win. Find those people, build relationships with them, add value. When you are interested in mentoring with someone, show them what you've done already to put yourself in position. Always lead with service and less with what you're going to get in return. That's gotten me so far in this industry is, hey, I can help you with this. In return, can you help me with this? Or can you answer these questions for me? And believe in yourself. I am a strong believer that the system is not always set up for us to succeed. But if you remain steadfast and stand on a stronger identity, which for me is God,
Yes,
Allah, or whatever, whatever you believe, believe in it strongly and carry that with you and use that to encourage yourself, because not every day is going to be a good day. And sometimes you will say, I don't want to do this anymore.
I'm done. About to throw in the towel.
Yeah, but don't give up. Restructure, reorganize, rebrand, do whatever you need to do to get back in position and pivot. But you don't have to be like everyone else. Make your own unique space, because there's no one else that's brokering freight like me. I made it all my own, just on my life experiences, and me. You have to do the same. So that's it. Believe in you, girl. God got you. Don't give up.
Shay Lynn, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. How can people reach you if they want to work with you, or if they want to contact you? What's the best way?
Yes. So if you just go to ShayLynnDixon.com, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. LinkedIn is where the money is at. So if you want to talk freight, that's definitely a good place. And follow me on Instagram. I try to share as much industry insights as I can, tips for setting up not just your freight brokerage business, but your logistics company, right? Whether you're a truck driver, owner op, whatever you are, there's something I'm sure that you can take from value from my content. And DM me if you have questions. I make content for you all. So if you have questions or need help, I post in my stories sometimes, and I'll just respond to questions. And if you can't afford a consult, that's the best way to do it. Get your information, get your questions answered, and be on the lookout. I have a community that's coming out, a group coaching program for people who are interested in freight brokering or have freight brokerages, and some LinkedIn strategies to help you as logistics providers just show up professionally on LinkedIn and step into that executive presence. It's a really great free way to attract opportunities. So connect with me at Shay Lynn Dixon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the Lady Trucking CEO podcast. This has been amazing. Please, you'll find all the info in the bio. And thank you guys. Shay Lynn, thanks again for another.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you.